Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode in the Phase 3 Meet series. It's my absolute pleasure to be joined by Steve Elcock, who is the CEO and founder of elementsuite, who are also a Phase 3 partner. Hi Steve, how are you doing?
Hi, I said very well, thank you. Great to be here.
No, thank you very much for joining us today. Let's dive straight in, and why don't you tell everybody all about elementsuite?
Thank you. No, that's great. So elementsuite is a full suite HR and WFM software package. It's a company I founded in 2017, late in 2017. And I guess it's born out of a lot of frustration of working with big ERP systems, the tier ones, should we call them. And yeah, for many, many years I'd run a consultancy dealing with those systems, trying to implement them, and running into lots of frustrations about the software and also the methods by which that software was deployed. So elementsuite is kind of grounded in this frustration of how to do things better, how to do things differently. And yeah, my background is a scientist. We'll perhaps come on to that later, but I've always been fascinated with how complex things can be sort of created from fairly simple base elements. So people ask me, why was elementsuite called elementsuite, and the sort of muse behind that, I guess, is that a bit like Lego, you can make sort of all sorts of crazy stuff out of Lego. I just bought my son this big Lego Ferrari at Christmas, but it's incredible how complex things can be constructed. So DNAs, 4 bases, all the chemicals in the universe, all that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of kind of scientific sort of background in all of this, and what we tried to do is create software which we could build into very simple building blocks into much more complex kind of layers of software. So that's ultimately where elementsuite was born, and we've had a great deal of success. We're UK tech, very proud to be UK tech. We have grown pretty consistently at 40% since our founding, which is great. And lucky enough to have some great names on our books. McDonald's UK is our flagship sort of client. They have 170,000 people or more now, I think, on the platform. We've just renewed another 5 years with them. But that's ultimately where elementsuite came from.
I love that story. I love that background piece, not only about why you founded the company, the frustrations of big tech and ERP and tier one, and I can do this myself and I can do it better. I also love the background to the name. People often ask me what's the background and the meaning behind Phase 3. I haven't got a story to tell, it's literally just a name pull. So I love the fact that you've got a story on both sides there. That's fantastic. So you touched upon a little bit there in the intro, your pre-2017 and pre-elementsuite career to that point, and you're running a consultancy firm. Perhaps just tell us a little bit more about your story, Steve, in terms of what got you to 2017 and founding elementsuite.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was at university, I was a scientist by trade, a natural scientist. I ended up doing, I suppose you could call it a slightly obscure, strange degree. It was a neuroscience degree. So I ended up in brain science. I was sort of fascinated with the brain and consciousness. I think there's probably 2 big questions in the universe, like where do we all come from, and how can we perceive things and be conscious? I know that's slightly kind of wacky, but I was very interested in that sort of neuroscience aspect of things, and really had no clue as a graduate that I would get into computer science or indeed building software. But so applied for some drug companies and things like that, but ended up in management consulting for PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Okay.
Who were at the time building...
Was that straight off the bat from university?
Straight from university.
Right, okay.
So straight into a graduate placement at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And they were very much into, at the time, building their practices around SAP, around Oracle, and those big things that were around at the time. And I sort of chanced into a new and up-and-coming practice that they were building, which was PeopleSoft. Which back in the day, you may remember the good old days, PeopleSoft was very much the daddy, if you like, of HR software for a while. And it was one of the first, I think it was the first ERP to go to the web, to be entirely web-based. And built that consulting firm. After a few years at PwC, I got quite sort of fed up of the big institution. I suppose I'd learned an awful lot there, so I'm very grateful for my time, but equally felt there were an awful lot of things that I'd like to be able to do better myself. I've always had that that slightly kind of, I guess you could call it sort of arrogant or ambitious sort of view that I can do things better myself. And that was where my first consulting company was founded. So after about 3 or 4 years at PwC, we did some work for British Telecom, building PeopleSoft for them, off the back of a project that the PwC had done for them. So yeah, founded that consulting business. It went well. It was very, I suppose, slow progress. We had organic growth. We were doing services of the type, I guess, Phase 3 currently offer, but very much focused just on the PeopleSoft environment.
PeopleSoft was sweeping all before then, weren't they?
At that time, it was really a wave to be caught, and we were lucky. We caught a wave, if I'm honest. We did very well off the back of that business. A lot of blue chip companies would take PeopleSoft, and that would be their platform of choice for running their HR systems. So that was where we got
luck is needed.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think you're right. Yeah,
anyways,
in whichever place you end up, often you're just, circumstances and timing are everything. And we were lucky enough to catch that PeopleSoft wave. But I think we also made the most of it. We managed to. We worked hard. We looked at the boundaries of what PeopleSoft could and couldn't offer to clients. We realised there were extensions that could be made to PeopleSoft to kind of almost in a framework way deal with certain classes of problem that PeopleSoft didn't deal with. So things like capturing extra data, querying, integrating, all the difficult things around the edges that perhaps traditional consulting firms weren't very good at. So we became quite sort of techie during that journey, and I think we learned a lot about what we've now taken into elementsuite.
And did that take you to 2017 when you exited that business, or was it a little bit earlier?
Yeah, we gradually grew the business over 15 years or so, and slowly, organically, we built this thing up. We never went for any sort of external funding or anything. I've never really been into that, being sort of pumped by an external kind of investor as such. But yeah, that was really the frustration grew over that time. Oracle acquired.
I was going to say, was that because Oracle acquired pre-2016-17, isn't there?
That's right, so about 2006 actually.
So they were way
so
before,
2006 it was when PeopleSoft was acquired, and I suppose at that time we thought, the end's in sight, this business isn't going to go anywhere. But PeopleSoft was a very good product, and Oracle took it forward, over another sort of 10 years or so, but in the end didn't invest in it so much. Then invested in their HCM cloud offering, which has come through as a very strong tier 1 offering now. I think the problem for us as a SI, if you like, or a supplier of Oracle, is that we were asked to become more and more sort of part of Oracle's kind of sales engine. And for me as a technologist and a scientist, it was just slightly contrary to where I wanted to take things in my career. I was much more interested in sort of solving the problems rather than selling the software. So that was where elementsuite was born, and that frustration of perhaps working with some of the constraints of Oracle and SAP and others that we came across on our journey. That was where elementsuite really kind of flourished as a result of all of that.
Okay, so now we move to present day. You're CEO and founder of a very successful kind of HR tech business. Do you feel much pressure associated with this role?
I guess in any leadership role, I guess there is a certain pressure associated with it, with the responsibility, accountability. I've always been someone who's thrived on pressure. I don't know why. I always found it got the best out of me. At school, I was one of those annoying kids who's quite competitive.
No, there's nothing annoying about people.
Yeah,
I'm exactly the same.
Sure
I do it now.
Very annoying back
I'm
then.
like super competitive with my kids and stuff. It's ridiculous, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I was always, I'd love to compete with people, and if I couldn't find anyone to compete with, I'd start to compete with myself, and setting sort of targets, whatever it was, back at school and revision and things. And sports, I played sport to a reasonably high level, and I do actually think that helps a lot. So I played cricket when I was younger. Sadly, I had to sort of give it all up when business came along. It was hard to. It's not a very family-friendly game, cricket, unfortunately, at the weekends. But I played to a good level. I had England trials, so I played for my county in the west of England and things like that. So cricket's an interesting game. So there's sort of pressure, I guess, with cricket. But I think when you play something like sport to a reasonably high level, you get used to the idea of sort of enjoying the pressure and sort of like trying to work out how the pressure can help you rather than sort of overcome you. So yeah, I guess there is some pressure. I enjoy what I do, and as such, I guess it doesn't feel quite like pressure.
I love that. I think it's sometimes, and I apologise if the question was a little bit loaded, but I think pressure is you either enjoy the so-called pressure of running a business, or you kind of cower under all of that. And sometimes, I mean, for me, I think in particular, it's about the journey, isn't it? You know, so our kind of business lives aren't too dissimilar in terms of longevity, I suppose. So kind of phase 3 is approaching 20 years in business now, and I love it.
Yeah.
I don't mean this in a cocky way. I don't feel the pressure, because what is there not to enjoy?
No, I totally
We're
agree.
still here 20 years later.
And it's overcoming those challenges.
Exactly.
The more you can overcome, the more confident you become, and I think it becomes.
And you
sort of
learn
easier.
things all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love the sports analogy as well. I'm a big sports person myself. Not so much cricket, although I did play a bit of cricket when I was younger, and football. And I think not only in terms of dealing with pressure and pressure environments and situations, but the team ethic as well. I think you can learn a lot from that.
It's huge. And you're absolutely right. I mean, cricket is an interesting game because it has a slightly sort of interesting balance of individual performance and team performance.
Yeah.
Perhaps, possibly even more so than perhaps full team sports like football and rugby. You know, that moment, if you get the ball deviates and you're out, first ball, you scored 100 last time. It's sort of a natural level.
How do you bounce back from that mentally?
That individual kind of spotlight, but the team aspect is huge as well. All the kind of dry sarcasm that goes on, and working
sledging.
out exactly sledging. Yeah.
Okay, Steve. So a little bit more about you here now as well. A bit more personal. What are you most passionate about?
So I do love cricket. I still love cricket.
Still.
That sort of background and just the various ups and downs of England over the last few years have been interesting.
You're more a purist in terms of Test cricket versus 2020
and
one day.
I'm converted to Bazball recently.
To Bazball.
Yeah. Well, the 2020 and the sort of
Yeah.
associated style in which obviously Test cricket's being played by England at the moment anyway. But so it's interesting how it's changed. I used to be a purist, and I think that I don't know. Perhaps it's just being in business for too long. You can kind of see how it's made the sport far more popular, and I think people embrace it on a much broader scale because of the different flavours of it now.
Okay, so cricket.
So cricket's very much a passion of mine. Music I love. If I had more time in life, which sadly I don't, as a result of Element Suite, I would love to play the piano. My mum made me take piano lessons, and that was something that I didn't enjoy at the time at all. And then sort of many years later, I sort of got on the piano and I thought I can actually put a few chords together, and started to be able to learn to play a little bit more by ear. So I'd love to spend more time doing that one day in a new world, perhaps where there's not quite so much going on. Piano is a passion, and music in general. But it is sad but true that AI is a huge passion of mine. My background was obviously neuroscience at university. It's been no use to me at all throughout my career, neuroscience. Not really. I suppose it's given me a structured way of thinking, and it's made me think about elements in Element Suite and the rich kind of connectivity and dimensionality, if you like, of life, and all those sort of interesting questions about consciousness. But actually it's not been very useful. But 2017, and when Google came up with this incredible breakthrough that I think is only just now coming to the public fore, around this paper, Attention is All You Need, and huge breakthrough just in terms of now AI being very much more, front and center of everyone's mind. So ChatGPT, everyone will be presumably familiar with now. And sadly, I do read academic papers on AI. And it's a bit of a weird one.
Keeps you ahead of the curve, I suppose.
It's a bit of a strange thing to be passionate about, but yeah.
Okay. On the topic of AI, because I know AI is obviously very prevalent within the tech of Element Suite and the products as well, which obviously you can discuss. Where does that passion come from? You've already kind of answered that, I suppose, in terms of your academic background. But for someone like myself who I'm not going to claim to understand AI to the level you do yourself, Steve, but where do you see it going now in, let's say, the next 5 years and the next 10 years?
Yeah, but it's funny, if you look at the history of AI, back in the day, and I'm sure we've all watched, The Imitation Game and Alan Turing and all of that kind of stuff. That was back in the 50s, 40s, late 40s, 50s. There's been various kind of waves of progress, but quite honestly, it's been very glacial. and slow the progress in AI for a very, very long time. And I think the excitement for me is that the combination really of more data in the world, more compute power in the world, and these incredible breakthroughs that have been made recently that I think, as I say, are coming to the fore, just makes this, I think, a game changer about how quickly some of this technology, is already hitting us, but will hit us over the next 5 to 10 years. So I think it unlocks so many things. I guess in our industry, productivity gains are going to be something that are very much kind of scrutinized, maybe managed into businesses through AI revolutions. And I think the journey of AI can be taken in a sort of staged way. So you can take gentle steps into it by doing, say, question answering, setting up and looking at your data as an organization, make it more structured so that you can embellish the prompt that's going to the AI.
Okay.
You probably tried this. You put a prompt into ChatGPT. You can ask it to write in certain styles or give it examples of how you want it to return the answer. But if you extend that concept, effectively your prompt can be absolutely pumped with, actually, if it's in a secure domain, HR data or feature sets of elementsuite or phase 3 success stories or whatever it might be, that all kind of inject into how the AI is then asking, resolving or responding to the question based upon next word, next letter prediction, using this incredible attention method that it now has available to it.
Like I say, I'm absolutely no expert in it, but the little bit I do know, and one of our board members, Joe, is a professor actually at Cardiff University.
Oh wow!
And he is, you two need to speak.
Yeah.
I need to get you in front of Joe.
Definitely.
Actually, you'd have a whale of a time.
Yeah.
And he talks about AI in consulting and how it can be used in terms of productivity and managing
100%.
costs and a variety of different areas.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, in consulting, the way I would probably look at it is, back in the neuroscience day when I was researching all of that and understood more about neuroscience, people talk about graphs. Now, traditionally we think of graphs as like pie charts and bar charts and things like that, but a graph in maths terms is kind of points in multi-dimensional space that are linked together. Okay. And effectively in a consulting world, you have your clients, your products, your meetings, your requirements, your tasks, your issues, your risks, your assumptions. All of this stuff, is kind of richly linked as graph points. And effectively, if you map all this stuff in a structured way, you can kind of plug all this into a prompt. So the question, how would I best deal with client A who has this problem with module B? Effectively by querying the graph, this knowledge graph, is often what they're referred to as. Effectively, you can make an extremely effective consulting.
You see, I find the end result of all that, not again understanding the levels and the layers below it, but the end result of that, I find fascinating.
Yeah,
I really do.
The end result has become much better because of the innate sort of language sort of capabilities that these LLMs now have. It still doesn't sort of get you off the hook, if you like, of having to structure that data really well in order to make the LLM not just come up with what it knows from the internet, but to understand your particular domain context.
Okay, that is fantastic. It's certainly a conversation I think we should continue off camera actually, about how we can, the best use cases, I suppose, for this kind of tech and AI in consulting businesses and stuff as well. It's really interesting. Okay, so Steve, tell me what's next for elementsuite and what can customers look forward to seeing in terms of the product roadmap in the next perhaps 12 to 18 months? So
lots coming up for us in the next year or two. I'm still in the position, fortunately, where I'm doing quite a lot of the product strategy, and as a result of that kind of history I spoke about earlier, neuroscience, computer science, still being quite hands-on with some of the coding aspects of what we're doing in the company, but also this journey through HR consulting and HR systems. We're trying to bring all this together into 3 sort of key initiatives that we think are going to be quite groundbreaking over the next 18 months or so. The first is called Ella. So Ella stands for elementsuite Large Language Assistant. So we've built into elementsuite, right at its core, the ability for users to interact with effectively a chatbot, but it's also just a layer underneath the surface of the UI. So actually it doesn't need to even launch the chatbot, it can kind of interact with the UI. and that will be useful for things like job descriptions and contracts, templates and that type of thing. So Ella we see being transformational just in terms of clients understanding the product better, but also Ella starting to provide guidance to managers and administrators. But yeah, that will provide the kind of assistance and guidance for working through processes, adding data and perhaps suggesting where improvements could be made.
Okay.
So Ella is the big one for us. Alongside that is Workflow Builder. And Workflow Builder has been on our cards now, if you like, for a year or two. But with the large language models coming through, we decided to hold on to Workflow Builder because we realised that there was quite a lot of power in these two things working side by side.
Okay.
AI can get you so far with responses, but it's even more powerful if you can give it access to tools. And this is sometimes called agency. So can it act as an agent sort of in the world to do something? You know, generate a document, run an action builder, fire an integration, that type of thing. Of course, that needs to be tested and carefully sort of, sort of ensure that nothing can go wrong. But Ella, alongside Workflow Builder, that's coming out this year. It's all kind of there. We're in beta with both those things, so that they will be available, you know, in the next few months. And then finally, we're doing a UI overhaul. You know, I think sometimes elementsuite has a lot of breadth and depth, and I think we can perhaps sometimes lose track of, you know, sort of end user experience. And I think we've let perhaps some of the sort of clever parts of the platform just become a bit too prevalent. So we're looking to make it simpler, make it sort of easier to use, and doing an overhaul entirely of the UI of elementsuite, even though the functions and the functionality should still be the same.
Exciting times ahead.
There's a lot
for yourselves and your customers.
There's a lot to do, and there's a lot coming. So yeah.
Excellent. So obviously I mentioned in the intro that elementsuite and Phase 3 are partnered. Just like to go into a little bit more detail around that, because obviously Phase 3 are the sole SI partner for elementsuite currently as well. And I have to say, from our point of view, every single interaction that we've had with elementsuite, with yourself and Dan and obviously the marketing team and everything has been absolutely first class.
Great.
And I think the culture fit,
definitely a culture fit,
certainly feels there, and it feels like a true partnership. But perhaps for the audience watching, what was it from your point of view that made you look at the kind of partnership an SI delivery model?
So yeah, there's probably two levels to that, Asad. So one is that obviously as we've grown, we have more projects coming on our books, and as a software vendor, it's really the SaaS revenue that is of, if you like, most interest to us. It's kind of the heart of our business is bringing customers onto that subscription model of the software, and the software development is of course where we feel, you know, we've invested heavily historically, and where we feel we want to be able to differentiate. You know, those new modules like Ella and Workflow Builder, and that's very sort of significant software development internally that we've undertaken. We don't offshore any of our development. We run it all out of our head office. But as the number of projects has got bigger, and I'm sure you find this, the challenge associated with making sure the delivery of those projects goes well becomes bigger as well. And to a certain extent, that's a different type of model. You know, I used to run a consulting business very much like yours, and that model is a very different type of model to the SaaS kind of growth model. So we became very aware of our sort of need to look at finding someone who could, you know, work seamlessly with our team to help, you know, clients get excited and understand the product, so that we have really good products or setup process for them. And you know, it's interesting when you go out, as you said, it felt like the interactions we've had have all been very, very positive. There's a number of SIs kind of out there. We definitely felt that Phase 3 was the closest match to us. There's something about that kind of understated excellence, I'll call it that you guys seem to sort of exude, that was very aligned with the way we were as well. Not too much sort of razzmatazz, just do a great job.
At the time, and how conversations progressed, and I do feel it's a perfect triangle for me. You know, in terms of, you get a lot of software vendors out there who want to keep everything in house, and that's fine. That's a model, and if it works for you, absolutely no problem. But I think software vendor, customer, implementation partner is the perfect.
It makes an awful lot of sense. Yeah. I think it means customers can speak more freely as well when they understand there's a kind of a sort of a triangle involved, and it means that we can all focus, I think, on what we're good at,
on what we do best.
Exactly that. Yeah. So that's the key reason for it, I think.
Fantastic. So Steve, tell me, what do you see as the challenges in our industry over the coming years?
Yeah, well, there's certainly been lots of change. I think, the post-COVID world has adjusted a lot of people's perceptions and views on the workplace, and I think that's probably still one of the major challenges for HR going forward. As people are adjusting to the right balance between home and wellness versus being back in the office. I see that being something that's changing, but also needs managing by HR.
Do you think that balance will ever be perfect?
Probably not.
We're never going to get to a "this is the balance" type model, are we?
No, and I think it's maybe caused people to ask the question a bit more deeply about. Certainly from my perspective, I thought working from home would be a catastrophe. Wouldn't work because I'm quite old school, and it turned out that it was actually very, very manageable. So I've had to reset my own views on the balance between sort of remote and home working. Some of the industries we particularly service require that on-site working in retail hospitality. So there's of course a sort of a bias there that means that they have to be on site. So I think it will very much depend on the nature of the industry and that we're serving, the HR function is serving, but also perhaps your role in that business as well. So those are all tricky things I think that have to be worked through, and probably a more detailed or granular sort of job description or something around that. And separately and perhaps tangentially to that, AI, with the advent of AI, I think HR will be asked tricky things about how to kind of prove or disprove the value of AI in the workforce, with things like productivity indexes and things like that. Can we make Assad work 10% harder because he's got ChatGPT? Or
Unlikely.
But those are the kind of questions, at a sort of global level that potentially CEOs will be asking of their HR departments. I think that's something else that will be a challenge going forward, about how one advises and makes sure systems are geared up and consulted and delivered in the right way to achieve moral aims, but also productivity aims for companies. So one of the other challenges, I think, Assad, is when companies are looking at their systems and how they can make better use of all the data, make it useful for the AI world. There's quite some work often involved in pulling data from different sources, best of breed applications, perhaps into a warehouse, such that the links and the various kind of relationships that AI will kind of detect for them can be made. That's one of the reasons elementsuite was, we have a single code base, single platform, single data store, so that some of that linking should be made much easier for clients. But I see that being a challenge generally. I think that bringing data together into some sort of well-ordered, should we call it sort of HR universe, something like that, is going to be quite a challenge, I think, for some of the practitioners who have things in disparate systems and bring it all together.
Okay, thank you. Some very interesting points there. Okay, so we're almost at the end of today's session, Steve, but we can't let you go without the quick fire rounds that we do. So just 2-3 questions just to get to know you a little bit better. You touched upon your love for cricket earlier on. So who's your favourite cricket player?
Oh, that's a very, very tricky question.
That's a tricky question.
Well, it's tricky because there's different dimensions of it. So Jeff Boycott, I used to love him, just solid as a rock, Yorkshireman, gritty, nothing shall pass kind of thing. Kevin Peterson was, in his day, I think one of the best. Just the way he could turn games around, phenomenal. And in recent times, I think probably Joe Root, just the consistency of him as a batsman, and the way he can play in all forms of the game. So he's probably my current modern day hero.
Next question, Steve. Who's your favourite superhero?
Superhero. Interesting. I would say, oddly, we'll answer that in a slightly different slanting way. Someone asked me a similar question, which was, who's your favourite kind of film character?
Okay.
And or also leader figure in films. And I always loved The Gladiator. Russell Crowe in The Gladiator. And there's a scene when they're all cowering in their cage. Waiting to get into the arena, and he just stands up and he's flexing his muscles. And out he comes, and he's just
love it.
Oh, you're not entertained.
I
just love that scene.
Yeah.
Not exactly a superhero, but that's definitely a favourite film character.
Gladiator, brilliant. Okay, and then what's your favourite food?
Favourite food, Thai green curry. I spent some time in Thailand.
I can't agree with you there, I'm afraid.
You can't?
I can't, no, but it's your answer, so
I love Thai green curry. I just can't get enough of it. I don't know what it is. It's the green chilli or something. I find it almost like addictive. It's just
Okay.
really, really lovely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Very
And then final question for today. If you were not founder and CEO of elementsuite,
yeah.
what would you be doing?
I would be learning the piano, trying to play by ear and have good fun in the bar, just doing sing-alongs. And I think that would be my
Fantastic.
ideal job if I wasn't doing
There you
anything.
go. Maybe in the future.
One day.
Maybe in the future, who knows. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed today. I think there's a lot to learn from you on everything around HR tech and AI and your kind of science background. And in terms of phase 3, we are really looking forward to continuing our partnership and growing our relationship and making it a very powerful force in the HR tech
Thank you.
marketplace.
It's been great to be here. Thank you.
Hope you've enjoyed it, guys, and look out for the next episode of Phase 3 Meets.